Hello and welcome back to Torah and Psychology. That's what's up. All right. So here's the biggest mind trip that my students often they come to Israel, they're excited to learn, and they get bogged down by this question of who am I? I don't even know who I am. And without condescension and only being twice their age, there's certainly people watching this who are thrice their age or even quadruple times their age. I look at them, I say, oh, friends, that's the wrong question. Asking yourself who you are. Well, when I was their age, I also tried to address this question, and I thought I did something super brilliant. So what I did is I lived in a small settlement called Bat Ayin at that time, and I decided that I was going to figure out who I was by taking out 4 of the most incredible women in town. Now, they were Torah teachers and mothers of many, like one had 10 kids and one had 14 kids and a husband in a wheelchair, like women that had been through a lot. In fact, one of the women, her husband had been murdered by Arab terrorists while he was praying in the forest, and she had been through cancer. So these were some heavy hitters of faith and self-knowledge, and they were all already in their 50s and 60s, so they had lived enough time to try to figure out who they are. So I said, who am I? How do I figure this out? What do I do? And one of the women just sweetly laughed, and she says, Neely, you don't figure out who you are in this lifetime. She's like, when I was 20, who I was different than when I was 30 and I had kids. That was different. And who I am, it's different all the time. She's like, that's not a relevant question. It's not a relevant question to wonder, who am I? Like, Maze, like, what are you asking? Like, who am I? She's like, what's important is rather to realize that you wake up every single day and you ask God, listen, God, I don't know who I am. I don't even know what I want, but who do you want me to be today? And this follows suit very much with the teaching of my teacher, Mor Leah Golem, who always says, do the mitzvah in front of you. Just do what's ever in front of you. We get so complicated, so sophisticated, and we'll do a class on that another time. But, it's like, just be whoever God needs you to be on that very day. Just wake up every day and say, God, who do you need me to be today? Not who am I? Who do you need me to be today? So I thought that was really brilliant wisdom and sort of a relief of like, phew, I guess I don't have to figure out who I am. That's really good news, right? Except for with all of that wisdom and profundity. And you could even just take that little notion of who am I and give it over at a Shabbat table. You could share like, oh, we don't need to know who we are. We just ask every day, who does God need me to be? But I also brought a Torah on figuring out who you are. So we've already done the class, you are what you hate. That's not going to be the answer. We're going to take a different spin. And this I learned out from Rabbi Akiva Tatz. He's a very famous South African rabbi, coveted speaker, just really inspirational. And he explains the who we are in an interesting way. He gives the following story or explanation to reveal a little bit more. So pause in your brain, put everything we said aside. We're going to start on a new track, and you'll see how it comes full circle. So he says like this, I'm just going to read it to you. Exactly at the moment. Now, don't think this connects to what we learned right now. It doesn't, okay? Exactly at the moment you're convinced that something will always be there, that is when it gets taken away. Interesting. What are you saying, Rabbi? What are you saying, Rabbi Akiva Tatz? He said, in all paradigms, light is given and removed, and we have to try very hard to get it back. We're not here for free gifts. We're here to work hard. But if that was never shown to you, you would never know what could be. And it is in that void that you come into your own. So we're talking about coming into your own. It's sort of like finding out who you are. Let's see what he says. He quotes Rebbe Meir, Zichrono Livracha, who says, imagine you could live, and now this is your job, okay? And I'm going to need you to get out a pen and paper because there's work to do here. Imagine you could live for one day as the person you could be if you worked on yourself for 20 years. Imagine if you were given a gift, if the spiritual world opened up and said that you could live for one day as the kind of person that you would be if you worked on yourself with full adrenaline burn, absolutely, totally, intensely working on yourself, refining your character, building your learning for 20 years. And you could live like that for only one day. So here's your first work, okay? Now, please don't be humble, okay? This is a game. This is an exercise. Go for it. So what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to stop and go get a pen and paper and say, if I worked on myself fiercely, ferociously, tenaciously, day and night, full burn, without stop, all the time, refining my character, working on that quality, who would I be? If I got the gift, the reveal from heaven, okay? If I got to see, who would I be on that day after working on myself for 20 years, okay? So the way that you answer this is you say, I would be a person who, okay? So I'll give you some examples because I've done this exercise tens and tens of times with many, maybe hundreds of participants. Some people say things, and please don't let anyone's answers that I'm about to give limit you. I really want you to come with your own unique thing of who you would be. In fact, if you do try to copy someone else's, unless it's really original to your heart, we're going to miss the results of the game. So I would be a person who, people said, live with complete and total emunah, total faith that every single thing that happened to me was for the good. I would be a person who was loved by everybody. I would be perfect, some people say. I would be a person who inspires other people to get up and live their best lives, some people say. The one that I first started with when I was practicing this exercise is I would be a person who, when other people interacted with me, they would know how precious they are. Now let's see, what if I'll just say that again. My original answer to this question, who would I be in 20 years if I worked on myself day and night, studied, practiced, prayed, meditated? I would be a person. I was inspired by Rav Shlomo Karlibach because that's how I felt like people interacted with him. I'll be a person that when people interact with me, they know how precious they are. But let's see, what would I answer now if I'm putting myself on the spot. This is not in my notes for today's class, but I think it's more genuine if I include it. So today, if I worked on myself 20 years, day and night, refining myself, I would be a person who I think I'd be a person who went to joy and trust that every single thing was good and for the good. I think I would live in tremendous joy at everything and gratitude. I think I would be a person who is filled with joy and gratitude for every circumstance in my life, both the difficult and the pleasant. That's who I would be after 20 years. So who would you be after 20 years of refining yourself, working on yourself? Let's just take a moment. Just kidding, you could pause this. But if you haven't paused it, we really should not go forward unless you have your answer. And you could have a few answers, but find something that's genuine to your heart. And if you feel like you've met some sen, meaning you made it small, like one woman said, like, I'd walk around like happy, like, okay, it's essentially the same thing I said, but go big, say what it really would be. Or one woman said, I'd be a good wife, right? And then we developed it a little bit. She'd say, like, I'd be the best wife in the world. My husband would know how sacred he is. Like, she just went on and on. Like, so try to plump it up and fill it out and really give it a good answer, thought out answer. So he says, in this context, okay, now that you have your answer, you're going to write it down, you're going to pause it. He says you could live like that for only one day, and then it'd be taken away from you. You mean, so like, let's say I got the gift tomorrow and I would just walk around in bliss and joy and gratitude for everything from the moment I woke up to the moment I went to sleep, and then I woke up today and it was gone. He says, can you imagine how you would feel on that day and how empty after? You would feel devastated. But you'd know what was intended. And you would be so inspired by seeing what could be, you would have something to work for. Now, what Rabbi Akiva Tatz is saying is, that's the way life is. First, you get given a gift, and then it gets taken away. So what do I mean? He gives examples, or I also give examples here. It's like a soulmate. Why does everybody long for their soulmate all the time, right? Everybody is longing for their soulmate. Every Disney movie is made after it. All rom-coms are about finding your soulmate. Everybody is sitting alone in their house who doesn't yet have their soulmate, and they're looking for their soulmate. Or even those who are married, they say, you know, if they give a blessing to single people to find their soulmate. But the truth is, Reb Shlomo would also give a blessing to married people to re-find their soulmate every day. So what's all this soulmate thing? Well, why do we long for our soulmate? Because in heaven, we were one soul. We were one. We get given a gift of soulmateage, and then it gets removed. It gets taken away. Us religious Jewish people, we're always longing for the temple. We want the third temple. Please, God, give us the third temple that'll stand forever. God, we want the temple. We're obsessed with the temple. Chabadniks are always singing about Mashiach. We want the temple. We want it right now. Why are we so obsessed with this building? Can't we do without this building? Well, the reason we long for this building so much is because we already had it. We had two temples. We knew the glory that could be, and we deeply, deeply want the third to come back. So too with Torah. Those of us who have tuned in to the ways of Torah, oh my gosh, we want more Torah. We want to learn it. We want to drink it. We want more. Why do we learn? Why do we yearn to learn Torah so deeply? Well, because we were taught it in the womb. And if you don't know this, there's a tradition in Judaism that says in the womb, the angel Raziella comes and teaches the baby the entire Torah. So all of us, before we were even born, we were learning Torah. And what happens when we get born? The angel hits us right here on that little segment, which is why apparently, according to Chassidut, we have that little line right there. Why do we have that? That's because that's where the angel hit you when you were coming out of your mom, and it had to erase all of your Torah knowledge so that what? So you could long for it again. The Garden of Eden, right? That's what heaven is like. We were there technically as an embodied part of Adam and Eve. We yearned for paradise. We yearned, I went to the beaches in Bali and I was like, oh, this is like so not nice. Like, this is not the Maldives, right? Like, I'm yearning. And that's Bali. I was on Bali yearning for the Maldives because really I'm yearning for paradise. Because why? Because I myself, my soul had a taste of paradise. It had a taste of the Garden of Eden. So that's the way life is. But he says, then is the test of character. Do you have the courage, the tenacity, what it takes to battle back to that inspiration through hard work? So what is he saying? Listen what he's saying. This is mind-blowing. Please go back to your answer. When I asked, who would you be on that day? I would be a person who. Now, like I said, I've done this exercise hundreds and hundreds of people. And every single time, the answers are almost always different. Why? The thing that you wrote that you would be in 20 years, is that what you already are? That's why you're longing for it in the first place. You are what you long for. If you weren't already a part of it, if it wasn't already a part of you in some way, shape, or form, you wouldn't have the desire, right? So some people who are artists, they desire to be prolific artists on that day, that they'd have world famous art all over the world. Or musicians yearn to be, after 20 years, a musician that'll change the world. The only reason they long for it in the first place is because it is within them. It is within them. Gifts get given and taken away. That's the nature of the world. But so that we could see it, so that we can have a glimpse, so that we can have a hope, so that we know what we need to have that courage and that tenacity and the hard work to work back from. So I hope right now you're blushing, because I hope right now you're realizing that that very thing that you said, I would be a person who, that's already who you are. The woman who said she wanted to be a perfect wife, That's already within her. Me to walk around joyful and grateful every day, it's within my capacity. I just have to work towards that and against all the voices of negativity and depression and despair. I got to work through those because what's already in me is that thing. What's already in you is that thing. So when I initially began this short course with the question, who are you? Right? Who am I? I want to know who I am. First of all, forget it. All right. Throw that in the trash. There is no who I am. We're changing all the time. You can feel relief. You never have to discover who you are. Right? You're changing every day, and every day we're instructed just to show up and be whoever God needs us to be. But that's only half fulfilling. That's a nice release. If you still want to know who you are, find out what you're longing for. Because the Torah perspective from Rabbi Akiva Tatz, from Rabbi Meir, is that if you think about who you deeply, deeply would become if you applied yourself, if you studied, if you refined your character, if you were in prayer, all of those things, if you burned with intense passion for 20 years, who would you be on that day? That is your essential character. And it's simply that this world masks that with all of its different layers. It covers up who we are. You know, Shrek wasn't so wrong when he said we're like an onion. An onion in Hebrew is a very interesting thing because it's called klipa. It's a shell, and it's so much klipa. Klipa is like something that prevents you from being who you truly are, right? There's other better ways to define it, but for this case, this is important. So we are the onion. We just have to peel away all those layers and work. We have to work for it. But what a beautiful relief is it to know that truly at heart, you are the person who you wrote down, I would be a person who. If it was connected to faith, then integrally in your nature, intrinsically, you have an enormous cistern of faith to tap into, to drink from. If it was about relationships with people, that you will connect to different people in special ways, you have a wellspring of connection to tap into. If it was a talent that you would develop, if it was a quality, a midah that you would then emulate in the world, that's because it's already within you. If you long for it, if you truly long for it, the only reason you truly long for it is because it was already part of who you are. So on this quick episode of asking ourselves, who am I? Let's take the Jewish approach. You know, they say this cute joke, a Jewish man was found on a desert island with 2 synagogues. And they asked him, what? Why did you build 2 synagogues? And he's like, oh, the one that I go to and the one I would never go to. So too here, all in good paradoxical fun. Who are you? Who am I according to Torah and psychology? On the one hand, forget it. It's not a relevant question. And on the other hand, if you are intrigued, go to your deepest seated desires. Go to your highest prayers. Go to the vision of yourself that would inspire you forever. Go to the highest dream you could dream for yourself. And that is who you truly already are. So I bless you to spread this exercise. It's incredibly inspiring when people find out what's at the seed and the core of their existence. That which they're longing for is already who they are. So I bless us with the hard work and the tenacity and the courage to get back to that. And I bless you to blush so bright today because you found out what's truly already inside of you. Thanks for watching. Can't wait to catch you on the next episode. Peace.